War strips away rules and comforts, and from that vacuum springs invention of a grim kind. During World War II, soldiers, resistance fighters, and desperate civilians fashioned crude but sometimes deadly implements from bicycle parts, scrap metal, bottles, and sheer ingenuity. These were not hobbies. They were last-ditch tools of survival. Below are 7 notorious improvised weapons from WWII told as history, followed by modern lawful ways you can protect your home today without recreating dangerous lessons from the past. The Molotov spirit of urban resistance. Across occupied Europe and in the Pacific Theater, incendiary bottles became synonymous with uprising. A thrown glass that ignited could stop a vehicle, clear a barricade, or terrify an occupying patrol. Its power was psychological as much as physical, and Saudindan, Lanchem Makan, Wananjin, Dandersetik Kralden Nam. Then stowed a flame in a dark street broke nerves and slowed advance, but these devices also set civilian buildings ablaze and caused horrific injuries, which is why combatants who used them accepted terrible moral and legal consequences. Pipe and improvised explosive devices in partisan warfare. Partisan groups dependent on sabotage sometimes turned scrap piping and found explosives into means of derailment or ambush. These tools could cripple supply lines or destroy infrastructure. Their unpredictability, collateral risk, and terrible consequences for non-combatants made them one of the war's most fraught improvisations, effective in a tactical sense, devastating in human cost. Homemade blades and trench improvisations. In close quarters, in hedgerows, cellars, or trenches, fighters sharpened what they had. Bayonets scavenged from wreckage, knives from farm tools, or shivs from metal scraps. These implements were brutal, intimate, and often dangerous to their users as much as to their targets. Many soldiers later testified that close combat improvisations left lasting physical and psychological scars. Bicycle-mounted charges and sabotage devices. So, resistance cells adapted civilian technology, like bicycles, carts, and hidden saddlebags, to move materials and, conceal explosive or incendiary charges. The ingenuity was, honestly, remarkable, but the ethics and aftermath were pretty grim. Such innovations targeted the logistical lifelines of an occupier, but also risked civilian lives when trains, bridges, or goods exploded unexpectedly. Makeshift flamethrowers and incendiary tools. Some desperate defenders actually fashioned crude fuel sprayers to clear out bunkers and pillboxes. The use of open-flame weaponry in confined spaces caused just catastrophic burns and firestorms. Even in historical accounts, survivors described these weapons as creating scenes of horror, rather than anything you could call tactical elegance. Shrapnel traps and booby traps from debris. Fields littered with shrapnel, hidden nails, and sharpened metal became a defensive landscape. Guerrillas and retreating units sometimes left booby traps to slow enemies, but honestly, these devices did not discriminate and often maimed civilians long after battles ended, a harsh legacy that shaped post-war bans on indiscriminate munitions. Improvised small arms and pipe guns. In places where factory-made guns were hard to come by, crude single-shot devices would sometimes make an appearance. Now these could work at close range, but they were notoriously unreliable. They were prone to misfires, catastrophic failure, and, unpredictable lethality. Many users found themselves as likely to be harmed by their own weapon as by the enemy. The human cost and legal reckoning. What really unites these improvised solutions is a sense of desperation and, let's be honest, moral ambiguity. They worked sometimes, failed often, and frequently inflicted harm beyond the intended targets. In the post-war period, international law and domestic policy began to move to restrict and criminalize many such devices. This wasn't because they were ineffective, but because their use blurred the line between combatant and civilian, and their consequences were indiscriminate and long-lasting. Safer, lawful home defense alternatives. practical today without any weapons construction. If your interest is protection, history really shows us how dangerous improvisation can be. So, let's talk about physical security upgrades. Reinforce doors and frames, install quality deadbolts, and upgrade windows with locks or laminated glass. These measures really help deter forced entry and honestly, they're the single most effective baseline for home protection. Now, moving on to alarm systems. A professional alarm and monitoring system, a modern alarm connected to monitoring services and rapid response, can actually prevent an incident from escalating. And don't forget, visible signage and cameras alone deter many opportunistic intruders. Finally, let's cover lighting and landscaping. Motion-activated exterior lighting and trimmed sightlines reduce hiding places around your home. Simple environmental design can prevent surprises long before they ever occur. So, when it comes to situational planning and escape routes, honestly, the safest defense is a plan. You should map exits, designate a safe room, and rehearse evacuation with your household. And yeah, consider redundancy, like having keys, charged phones, and rendezvous points ready just in case. So, where it's allowed by law, you might want to consider using legal, non-lethal tools like alarms, flashlights, or certified personal alarms. But honestly, even more important is enrolling in certified self-defense or situational awareness training, stuff that really focuses on avoidance, de-escalation, and if needed, escape. Community networks, like neighborhood watch groups and communication apps that alert neighbors when something suspicious happens, can really multiply individual safety, and, social cohesion actually prevents a lot of crimes before they even start. If you decide to own a firearm, it's super important to get formal training, follow all the laws for storage and use, and take certified courses in marksmanship and safety. Responsible ownership means keeping your firearm stored securely and really understanding your legal obligations. Just a final thought here. History can be fascinating, but it's also a warning. World War II's improvised weapons tell stories of resourcefulness under terror, and honestly, consequences that echo for generations. If you'd like, I can turn the historical half of this piece into a full-length video script with first-person accounts and archival citations, or I could create a practical checklist for the lawful home security options we just talked about. So, which would you like next?